Hello grade 8s, this is Mr. Miller and welcome to lesson 5.3 on the surface area of a prism. So, let's fill in the blanks here. To find the total surface area of a 3D object, first of all you need to determine the number of faces. Next you need to calculate the area of each face, and then you need to find the sum or the total of these surface areas of all the faces. Next, for number 2 and 3, we want to find the surface area of each prism to one decimal place. So here we have a rectangular prism and the number of faces is 6. There's the front, there's the back, the right, left, top, and bottom. So if we first of all look at 2 times 11.2 times 17.5, what we are doing in that case, the 11.2 times 17.5, of course you see 11.2 here and 17.5 here, so really what you're calculating is the area of the front, which is equivalent to the area on the back. And that's why we're doing 2 times, because this will cover the front and the back. So if we refer to this as the length and this as the height, then doing length times height times 2, that will cover the front and the back. So in addition to doing this specific example, we also want to cover what is a formula we can use for the surface area of a prism. And so 2 times length times height is a part of it. Now if you do that multiplication, you're going to get 392 square centimeters. If you do 11.2 times 6, you're doing the height times, well, we could call this the width, or if you wanted to, you could call it the depth. Why don't we call this the width? So 11.2 times 6 will give you the area of this right face, and of course the left is exactly the same, which is why we multiply it by 2. So again, this is height and this is width. So doing 2 times width times height gives us another piece of the total surface area. If you multiply 2 times 11.2 times 6, you will get 134.4 square centimeters for that part. And finally we have 17.5 times 6. So 17.5 times 6 gives you the area of the bottom, and of course the top is exactly the same. So that covers the last 2 faces. So really this is 17.5 times 6 is length times width. So 2 times length times width is our final piece for the surface area formula. And when you multiply these numbers, you get 210 square centimeters. To get the total surface area, you would have to add all 3 of these pieces together. So the 392 plus the 134.4 plus the 210 will give you a total surface area of 736.4 square centimeters. Now I just want to point out that I've created a formula here, 2 times length times height plus 2 times width times height plus 2 times length times width. That will give you this total surface area. And I just want to point out that this formula can be written in a different way, so I'm going to show this way. So here is one formula for us. Or we could write an equivalent version for the surface area by taking out that common factor of 2 of all the terms and just multiplying it once at the end. So you could do, instead of what we've done here, you could do length times height plus width times height plus length times width, calculate that, and then double it, and that will give you the same thing. So I'm just going to put that formula in a box, and you may want to sort of highlight those things so they'll be useful for you for doing calculations later. So for a rectangular prism here, we've now done one specific example, and we've come up with a formula for finding the surface area of a rectangular prism. Now let's take a look at the next thing that we have here, which is a triangular prism. And with a triangular prism, the number of faces is 5. So you have the front and the back that are triangles, and then you have these 3 lateral faces, which are rectangles. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start labeling some sides. I'm going to call this side A, and I'm going to call the bottom here B, although really it's the base of this triangle. I'm going to refer to the 3.2 as lowercase h. It's the height of the triangle. I'm going to call 7.2 capital H for the height of the prism. And now, one thing that's not entirely clear in this diagram, and I'll just clarify it, is that the intent was to have these two sides equal to each other. I'm going to call this third side length C, and it is the same as A in this particular case. So when you calculate the surface area of this triangular prism, you have to make sure that you cover all 5 sides. Now, you can see that, first of all, there is a 3.2 times 4 divided by 2. So the 3.2 is the height, the 4 was the base of the triangle, so we're doing base times height divided by 2, and that's how you calculate the area of a triangle. So finding the area of this triangle and doubling it covers the front as well as, we can't really see it here, but the back. So at the same time as we're doing this calculation, I'm also going to generate our surface area formula. So if you do base times height divided by 2, and then you're doubling it because you've got a front and a back, well, these two factors really cancel each other out. So I'm just going to erase this and leave it out of the formula. If we do base times height divided by 2, then double it, the dividing by 2 and doubling, those two factors cancel each other out. So when I do this calculation here, I get 12.8 square centimeters. And that covers, again, the front and the back, which are those triangular faces. So now we're going to add another component on. We have, in this particular case, we've got 5.1, which could be either one of these sides, times 7.2. So the 5.1 was A, but it could have been C as well. And the 7.2 is the height of the prism, and we're doubling that. So that's just in this particular case because the right face here and the left face are the same rectangle. But generally speaking, you'd have to do these two things separately. You'd have to do A times capital H to get the area of the rectangle that's on that left side, and you'd have to do C times capital H, and then finally you'd have to also do B times capital H, and that's what we're doing down here. The 4 times 7.2, that's B times capital H to get the area of the rectangle that's on the bottom. So if you calculate these two things, the 2 times 5.1 times 7.2, you get 73.44 square centimeters. If you do 1 times 4 times 7.2, you get 28.8 square centimeters. So to find the total surface area, you need to add all these things together, the 12.8 and the 73.44, as well as the 28.8, and that will give you a total surface area of 115.04 square centimeters. Now we have a formula right here for the surface area of this of this triangular prism. There is a another way that you can do up this formula. So I'll just give you one other suggestion as to how you can use it. So you can also write it this way, that the surface area is base times height of the triangle plus you do A plus B plus C, which is the perimeter of the triangle, times capital H, that's the height of the prism. And that will give you the total surface area of this prism. So I'm going to put this other formula in a box, and you may want to come back to this again later to make use of that formula as you're doing your assignment. Alright, so let's take a look at the next page. We've got Raheem, whose dad wants to paint the outside of the garage, including the roof. Which is a little bit strange, but okay, whatever. So let's just agree to call this the front of the garage. The number of sides for the garage that need to be painted is 6. So there's the front, there's the back, that's 2, and there's this one here, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 on the other end that we can't see. So there are 2 different shapes that make up the front and the back of the garage. So on the front and the back there is a rectangle. That's the rectangle that we're talking about right here. Okay, there's also, so in addition to the rectangle, there's also a triangle, and that's the triangle right here. So to calculate the total surface area that needs to be painted, let's first of all calculate the area of the front and the back. And the reason I'm doing the front and the back together is because they are the same. So I can do 2 times the area of the front, and that will reduce my work a little bit. So we know that the front has this rectangle to it, which is 4.2 by 2.2. And it also has this triangle to it, which has a base of 4.2 and a height of 1. And with a triangle, you do base times height divided by 2 to find its area. So if you do that calculation, you'll get 22.68 square meters. Now let's consider the right and left sides. And so for the right and left sides, they are both the same. So we've got the right side of the garage and the left side of the garage, which is this rectangle right here. And so now we'd like to calculate its area. So what we can do is we can calculate the area of one of them and then just double it. So that is going to be 2.2 times 5.3. And of course we're going to double it. And so when we multiply these things, we get 23.32 square meters. And finally, if we take a look at the rooftops, which apparently they're going to paint as well, a little bit strange, but okay, whatever. They are rectangles as well. So we've got 2.5 by 5.3, and it is the same on the other side. So 2.5 times 5.3, and it is the same on the other side, so I'm going to go times 2. And this gives me a total surface area for the rooftops of 26.5 square meters. So to figure out the total area to be painted, what we need to do is add up all these things. So we're taking the 22.68 square meters and we're adding on the 23.32 square meters and we're adding on the 26.5 square meters, and that will give us a total of 72.5 square meters. So that covers the examples for this lesson. Now you need to pick 8 questions from the textbook. Thank you for watching and have a great day.